Welcome to another episode of No Ordinary Woman, where we recognise and celebrate women of all ages and all stages. I'm Fiona Briffa, and today I have Vanessa Medling joining me. Hi, Vanessa.
Hi, how you doing?
Good, thank you. We've just been offline chatting about how we can't wait to come out of lockdown, because if you're watching this in the future, Victoria in Melbourne, Australia is emerging from lockdown. So, yeah, woohoo. So Vanessa, let's talk about you. You left a corporate career in your 40s and became a coach and helping women achieve financial freedom and have a better relationship with money. I just want to go back to what triggered that off in the first place.
Wow. So which bit? The leaving the corporate career or the bit around money?
The bit of, I guess, yeah. So let's start with the what interests you, or what got your motor running around helping other people with money. What happened for you? Because that's usually the catalyst.
Yeah, totally. Well, it's funny, this is something I've been exploring myself over the last few years more deeply around what is my money story? What are my money beliefs? What did I learn as I was growing up? And on all of the reflection, I've actually interviewed both of my parents around it. It was fascinating having a conversation with them about what life was like. And I think it just wasn't discussed. Money didn't get discussed in our household. It was very private. And my parents, I think my mum managed it really well. My dad was in the Navy. Mum was looking after kids, so she had to juggle it. And I just think they were people that probably went paycheck to paycheck, so that we didn't have to go without. So I don't have a lot of big memories as a child, but I do recall when I was a teenager, I started working at Woolies, and the first year I got my group certificate back in those days, and I went, I earned that much money, like it was probably, I don't know, $500 or something when you look back on it. But I remember being really surprised by how much I had earned and had nothing to show for it. So from then, I had a little exercise book that I'd sort of write out what I spent my money on, because it's always kind of interests me. And then as time went on, kind of upgraded to Quicken and having it all electronic. And then I met my husband, my now ex-husband, and we got married and had children. And I think that I bought with that. It was funny because he had been married before and had some debt, and I helped him with that. And, used to joke about how he got $5 a day to buy coffee or something like that. And I think through that whole phase, I would be so good at managing it, but then he would spend it. We were such opposites, and it created a lot of stress for me that he didn't quite appreciate or understand, because his belief system was so different.
Yes.
And because I had been raised to never discuss money, it became a really uncomfortable conversation to have, where I didn't find my voice to talk about what that meant to me when that kind of thing happened. And he would look at that whole, I'd be accounting for all of our money, because it's just this habit I'd gained since I was at 15. And I remember we'd be out in public and he'd go, oh, she could tell you how many Barney bananas I've had over the last 12 months, and would say things like that would embarrass me, and I'd feel really ashamed, and tied into that shame story as a kid around money's not something that we talk about. So I think that through all of that, and then, as we got divorced, and we co-parented our children, but clearly this whole security thing around money was something that had been in me from a child, I guess. And he knew the bruises to press on. So that made it really challenging through that whole phase. My kids were very little. They were 5 and 2.5.
Yeah.
And because I was working in a corporate career, I actually had to pay him child support.
Yep.
And so that just became a really ongoing, like, constant bruise pressing situation. And what I really wanted was when I left him, it was like, I don't care if I go into debt, because I know I'll be okay, because I'll be able to manage my own money.
Yes.
And so from that, you know, we were able to sell the house and all that kind of stuff. I walked away with minimal amount of money, but I built myself up and I built a house and, you know, provided for my kids. But
Yeah.
on a single wage, that was always quite a pressure. And also with this constant little annoying naggingness of somebody who's just going, how could I hurt you now?
Yeah, right.
And threatening that security. And I think that I just eventually got to a stage where I was able to stand up to him, and only really in the last couple of years, and really move beyond that and just start thinking about what do I want for the future and how do I want this to be different for me and for other women, because I felt like I'd lost my power. It was always a fear that I wouldn't be okay. And then I really stood into, you know what, I shouldn't be ashamed of the skills I have, because they got me through all of that. And I'm so proud of them. And now I've really lent into them for myself and for my clients. And that's really become something that I feel quite empowered about. And, you know, like last year, all of my work got pulled. I'm sure lots of people are in a similar situation. And it was really scary because I didn't have a backup fund or anything like that. Still had a mortgage, still had kids to look after. And I managed to save $90,000. It still blows my mind how I could do that in a year that was my worst year.
Wow. Yep.
So I look at all of that and I think, you know, like, I don't want another woman to have to experience necessarily the length of time that I guess I just stayed. My voice was quiet, and you know, I constantly felt like I had to fight for my security financially. And I want to see other women be able to know, whether they're married or single or, you know, wherever they are in life, don't be bullied, and don't abdicate that responsibility to somebody else, because ultimately, you know, we're in control of our own future, and we have the ability to choose that.
That's a really good point. And even though, like, even you might be married or you might be single, but you still are able to create your own lifestyle and be in control of certain aspects, and for that sense of security and like you said, just being able to have that relation. It's about relationship, the relationship you have with money and the belief system that you have with money. So you've mentioned that you were raised in your mum was, your dad was a Navy guy, wasn't he? And your mum was pretty much, you know, as anybody with a partner in the armed forces knows, that you're almost a single parent, having to manage budgets and things like that. And I know that generation was very, you know, like, even if they had money, they were still tight with it. So the belief system that we grew up with was about not having too much and things being tight. It can create behaviors and patterns down the track. And what you were talking about is that sense of, what's my relationship with money? Am I ashamed to have too much? Am I ashamed to not have enough? Am I able to speak out and own success? And I think this is a thing with women, that portion of it, but even your skill set and your other, like, being able to stand in your own power and be bigger than what we've believed we're allowed to be in the past is a really massive thing, isn't it? You're allowed to be rich if you want to be rich, right? You're allowed to work part-time. So where was the shift for you? Like you said, you were able to stand up and not be bullied. What did that look like?
Look, I think that it was, I always had this thing that everything, like, fairness is big for me, right? And it felt so unfair, the whole system around child support. And it felt like I was the flip. Like, normally you get to hear the guy complaining about, you know, the woman taking, you know, the manicures and the hair extensions because they're getting the child support. But for me, what happened was, there was a phase there where he ran his own business, so therefore he had a very ridiculously low wage, and I had to pay him a lot of my wage. And I remember my son in primary school, well, I was saying to him, what do you want to do when you grow up? And he went, well, I think I want to run my own business like Dad does. And I went, oh, how come? You know, are you interested in boats and all that? And he went, no, because Dad has way more money than you, and he can take us on holidays and you never do. And I just remember feeling so angry in that moment
Yeah.
around my son now has this perception,
Yeah.
even though I'm funding the holidays and he takes them, wherever.
Yeah.
How can I start to turn this around so that my kids don't grow up with this story
Yeah.
around misbeliefs? And I think when I mentioned before, when I interviewed my parents, this is only in the last couple of years, it helped me to realize that I had a lot of money stories and beliefs about what happened that weren't actually accurate.
Yeah. Right.
Mum and dad had very different takes on that. So really questioning
Yeah.
what am I allowing to myself to feel, and what actions am I taking or not taking as a result of that?
Yeah.
So from that time, what I decided to do was to stand up for myself. So if it wasn't fair, I would go back to wherever I could, and like I'd argue the point, or I had investigated for his wage. I just continually kept standing up to
Yeah. Right.
this isn't okay by me, and letting it not control me so much that I still got on with what I needed to do to make sure my family was well looked after.
Yeah.
And I think that it was really around the time that, my kids started working. My son got his first job, and I discovered Scott Pape, the Barefoot Investor.
Oh, yes. Yes.
I took my kids on date nights.
Yeah.
We'd go to restaurants and we'd talk about that, and really wanted to just break the cycle that started with my children having these open discussions about money and helping them understand that you can be in control of your own money, and really wanting to show them and empower them around how to manage it.
Yeah.
Because I knew that their father had completely the opposite kind of money habits and story, that they weren't going to learn positive things from him. So
Yeah.
how could I be a parent that, I guess that's a way of standing up and
Yeah.
against the system or
Yes.
against him, is to help them see, and as they got older, they understood more and more about what actually happened. Now they're young adults. So it was
Yes.
really saying, let's break this cycle of never discussing money.
Yes.
Let's give my children the skill set so that they can never be, not that they would never be in that situation, but that they would always feel empowered when it came to their financial. And I really, trust that they will enter relationships into the future and know that, no, look, I've got a pretty good structure and system around money, that I'm not going to bend over to that to anyone. And I think for me, the biggest thing in the last couple of years was that realization that, I am getting closer to my youngest being 18 next year. And I sort of, like, I turned 50 last year, and I kind of had this big aha moment that in 10 years' time, I kind of want to retire. But
Yes.
because I've been trying to avoid earning too much, so I don't have to pay too much tolls, but like I was battling the wrong battle.
Yes.
Now I'm realizing that to set myself up financially for the future, I need to let go of that. I
Yeah.
need to not let him influence in any way my decisions about where I want to be financially. And I just hope that with my experience, I can help others, to other women, to be able to stand in that space too, and never be fearful of their financial future, because we just don't know what's going to happen in our lives.
Exactly right. And isn't it difficult though, finding that balance, like you said, as you were so busy fighting the battle of your present financial circumstances, that you weren't looking at your future. And I know a lot of people who do that, and I've done it myself, but I don't anymore, but who try to not earn so much so they're not paying so much tax. I'm one of those people that goes, woohoo, when I've got a big tax bill, because it means I've been successful and earned enough in my business. And it's like, if I don't want to earn too much, because, and this was my old way of thinking as well, because then I've got to contribute more to my super. You're investing in yourself. I mean, what are you trying to do? What are you trying to hold back? It's like, and it's, I think that's what you're saying, is like helping people unlock the stories and beliefs in their own mind, whether it be a family of origin or a religious belief or, cultural belief or whatever, wherever that's come from. We have beliefs that become blockers in all different areas of our lives, don't we? And I think money is one of the biggest ones. And if we look at money as the investor, in our lives and our future, we can start looking at it differently. So in your experience, so with yours, it was around, you know, just owning your and being in control of your own finances and success. What other stuff do you come across? It's a big thing for women with the women that you work with. Because we know there's a lot of single mums out there. There's a lot of women in their own business, even women that are sort of in that situation you were in, where their husband's financial beliefs aren't the same as theirs. It's not just single women, but married women and partnered. What's the biggest thing you come across?
I think the biggest thing I see is how those beliefs, or, you know, the financial trauma that we experience throughout our life, how that plays out, particularly for women who have their own businesses. And, you know, just the subtle signs around things like, you know, often what I find is women really want to help and serve. And so once they get over the hurdle of how do I make sales, they can have really successful businesses that bring money in. But if they aren't on top of managing that money, how that can show up is not paying themselves a wage or not paying themselves first, so everybody else gets fed before me, that kind of mentality. It can be the bury your head in the sand, kind of like, oh, look, there's money in the bank. Woohoo, it's time to go out and spend. Just like, oh, I've had a great month. Let's buy this, this, and this. And then not realize that business goes like this. And there'll be a time period in the future where you don't have that luxury of being able to make those choices. So it's around that, you know, the big point for me is once I shifted from being reactive and started thinking about the future, like, what do I really want to achieve? What's important to me? And I think that that's where it shows up. We're reactive, and that can show up in the way we spend or save. And look, I think COVID's been brilliant in helping people understand the whole emergency fund, having money to the side there. Like, I kind of got that concept, but it wasn't until I lived last year that I went, I really get that concept. And now it's just like, no questions asked, that money's put aside. So it really is about saying, where do I want to be in the future, and what legacy do I want to leave for my children, if you've got children, or even if you're single, or choose not to have children, what legacy can I leave for future generations? Because you know what I know to be true is that when women have money, they want to give to causes that mean something to them. They want to make a positive impact on the world.
Very givers, very much givers. I want to touch on another thing, as if you've had, because this was an example, I was an example of this, is having grown up, like I grew up in a normal family, had enough money, all that sort of stuff, not too much, but always had everything we need. It was very middle class and never lacking. But I, as a single mum, and then really struggling, but then also struggling with a lot of other things and difficulties, when I came out of those difficulties and started to improve my life and personal development, I found myself self-sabotaging with money. So I would be earning a lot of money and then I'd give it away, either just overindulging or giving it away and things like that, because it was like, I'm not used to having money. I'm not quite sure, do I even deserve this money? And it wasn't a conscious thing, but I can look back on it and see what I was doing. I don't do it now. Is that something that you come across?
Oh, 100%. You know, our little sabotage patterns are there for all of us. And I think this is where, you know, what I really want to help women to do is understand those patterns, understand what does that money look like? You know, where do I pay attention and focus to what it's been? What can I look back on? So for example, for some women, it might be you just hit a plateau where you earn great money, but it never changes. It's sort of the same income coming in. So then really digging into those beliefs.
Where's that come from?
Where does it come from? 100%, because I think that when we go back, like I said, we grow up with money doesn't grow on trees. My God, I said that to my kids.
Yes, I know.
Things and these sayings and beliefs that we don't they're in our subconscious mind. We're not aware of them consciously, that they're sabotaging. So really doing the work, and sometimes we need help with that
Yes.
to be able to uncover and like I said, really questioning the belief set, or at least understanding where they came from, so you can change it and change for the future. Sorry, I was just going to say, I've got a great story to share around that with my son. He's 19 going on 20, and he is really lent into this whole money discussion, and we're doing a couple of courses together. One is on property investment and the other one's on financial management.
Awesome.
And part of that was we were doing our money story, and so I'm like, oh gosh, I felt like I was under pressure of what did I teach you? And the fascinating thing that he said, and I'm really curious to know whether it's more than just this one experience, but his memory was when he was around 12 or 13, he got into rap music. And he said, I think I learned a lot through that, because every song talks about money, but it talks about it in a positive way.
Oh, right.
And it blew my mind, because I thought, well, he constantly lives with AirPods in, and he would listen to music all day long. And I listened to some of his music, and he's right. They often talk about, having money and doing good things with money. So it's quite fascinating to see where our influences can come from anywhere.
Yes.
And for him to recognize that kind of blew my mind, because again, it's sort of like, here I am thinking, oh, money doesn't grow on trees. I'm sure I said that little. And he's like, no. The rap is the biggest impact. That's why I'm so interested in it.
Yeah. And that's the thing. We can pass these things on to our kids. And I always say to mums, like, we all mess our kids up in our own special way, and that's okay. We're just mums trying to do life. But it's about what messages are we passing on to the next generation? And so with what you do, with the work you do, I think it's amazing, because you do need someone to sort of walk you through it. Like, this is why coaches are so valuable. And all my clients all go, I was really skeptical about this, and I didn't really think it was going to work. I'm like, I know. We hear that all the time. But specifically helping women around that space of money, and specifically, I think women, we have this giving personality, but also if we're carrying a lot of shame or whatever from our past, we can have that self-sabotage habit that we don't even see. Like I mentioned, this is why I love sharing. I'm so open with my story, so other people can go, oh yeah, that's me, and not be ashamed of saying it. Yeah, man, I've stuffed up so much. I've got a story for everything. But it's about looking at and understanding, where's that belief come from? Whose voice is that? What is it blocking you from doing? And why coaches like you are really valuable, and particularly that specialize in those specific areas. So, and I know, like, I'm just being mindful of the time. I just think it's really amazing that you have such a heart for helping women find their story, and like letting go of their old money stories and finding their new money stories, to allow themselves to be rich, allow themselves to be generous, allow themselves to be whatever they want to be and what their money story looks like, to create their own story and stand in their own power. I love that. I'm on board. I'm a fan. I'm a Vanessa Medling fan, right?
Thank you so much, because it makes a difference out there in the world. And that's what lights me up, knowing that, if it's just one woman, the ripple effect is amazing from that person being able to shift those old beliefs and habits, and then start challenging them so that they can move forward, really get clear on their vision. And I always say, I'm a money mindset coach with a twist of systems, just so that we can actually put systems in place to make sure that it's not just, I've got better money beliefs now.
Yes. What do I do with those beliefs? Yeah.
What are you going to do? What are the habits?
It's a mindset with a plan, and I love that. And look, if you are watching and you would like to, if any of this is triggered, like, oh yeah, I really feel like that's me. I mean, it really is all of us in some way or another. I'm going to leave Vanessa's links to her website, Business Together, Be Together, and to Vanessa's socials as well, just so that you can get in touch with her, follow her, find out more about what she does. But Vanessa, for today, thank you so much for sharing your money story and sharing the Vanessa Medling story with us as well.
Really appreciate it, Fiona. Thank you.
It's been an absolute pleasure. And thank you all for watching another episode of No Ordinary Woman. And we'll see you next time. Bye for now.